Uncle Billy. Can you tell us about yourself, your age, and where you're from?
I'm 91 years old. I was born in southwestern Oklahoma in 1922 on a farm. After I went to school, in a little school that my dad given the land that built it on our land. I started out in the two-room school. Went 2 grades, and then 5 of these little 2 rooms consolidated. My dad given the land, 5 acres to build this consolidated school, and then I completed the 3rd through graduation there. The school is lasted until about 1960, and then they just ran out of kids. Things have changed on the farm. In 1930, when that school was built, there was 45 school-age children within a mile and a half. Today, there's not one. So, and then I went to Oklahoma State World War II to college, attended 2 and started my 3rd year, and then Pearl Harbor was bombed, and naturally I was just the right age to go to service. I wanted to be a pilot, and I went into the service, take my basic training at Shepherd Field. I was married while I was in school. I married a high school long-time girlfriend, Kathryn On, and she and I were both in school and in college when the war started. But I went to Shepherd Field to do this basic training, and wound up, I was there 2 days to start this basic training, which was a lot of drilling, a lot of marching and stuff like that. And they called me to the office, and I said, "What have I done wrong? Have I screwed up someplace?" And they walked in and said, "Weaver, you've had 2 years of ROTC. You're now a drill instructor." Well, this was a great thing for me because I'm only 60 miles from home. I got a pregnant wife at home, so I'm going to be there for a while, and at least while this new baby comes. And that brings me pretty much up to date, other than after I got out of the service, I went into the sporting goods business, and that was my lifetime. It was most successful for me until I retired in 1996. That kind of brings you up to date.
Okay, the first question is, what do you know about the Ku Klux Klan in Tillman County, Oklahoma?
As far as I know, there was none in Tillman County. There just wasn't that much animosity towards the black people. We had no problem. We had several black people that lived on the farm and worked for us, and during the Depression, it was terrible for them. In the early Depression, wages were 50 cents a day to work in the field all day, and they were glad to get it. Everybody was glad to get it. 50 cents a day, it's hard to realize that they were anxious, and that was sun up to sundown. My dad foresaw the problem coming. In 1928, in addition to the farm, he put a chicken hatchery in, which turned out to be great because during the Depression, everybody had to have eggs and chickens to eat. And when they closed that hatchery, my mother and dad closed that hatchery down in about 1950. They were hatching 250,000 chickens every spring and winter. But that entailed one thing that I'll tell you about. And after 18 days, those eggs had been in the hatchery. We did what we call candling. We ran a light underneath the trays, and if the egg was clear, that meant there wasn't a baby chicken in it. And they had to be taken out because not put up in the hatching section. until 1927 they sold those eggs to bakeries, but they passed a law that you couldn't do that. There wasn't anything wrong with them, the clear ones, because they were infertile. And every Tuesday and Thursday nights was when my brother and I helped the hatchery and we did the candling of eggs. We'd have a couple of 5-gallon buckets of eggs we'd take out. And the next morning there would be 15 or 20 black people and white people too there to get those infertile eggs. So we fed a lot of people with eggs. Having them, we had 2 5-gallon buckets twice a week of infertile eggs. So that kind of tells you a little bit how hard times were.
How did you prosper during the years immediately following World War II?
Well, I was one of the successful ones. I decided I didn't want to be a farmer, and I put a sporting goods store in Durant, Oklahoma. The only reason I chose Durant, I couldn't find there weren't any vacancies any place. Every place was full. I finally found a building in Durant, Oklahoma. I said, "How lucky can you get?" Here's Lake Texoma is 2 years old. At that time was the 5th largest inland. Well, it was the largest inland lake in the United States, and it was also a college town. But it was a huge mistake. For an exclusive sporting goods store, you need a minimum of 150,000 population to draw from. I had 20,000. So naturally, I didn't have enough sales to make the sporting goods go retail sales. So what I had to do was get out and hustle the school athletic business from schools, and that turned out to be my bread and butter, and turned out to be great for the next 60 years.
What was your reaction to the civil rights movement?
I really didn't have a lot of thought about that because I just wasn't, I was completely at ease around black people, and I think they were around me. I called on schools. At that time, most of the black schools in Oklahoma had black schools as well as white, and I called them as well as, and I got along extremely well with them and had no problems at all with the black people. And on the farm, growing up, we had them around us, and I had a little colored lady that I loved her. She'd come make me cookies, or my brother and I'd make her cookies. And we loved Carrie. And I really had no hard feelings toward the blacks at all.
What was your opinion of integration?
I had mixed emotions. I was around black people and got along with them fine. I really didn't have any serious or deep thoughts about that. I just could see it coming and knew that I had a lot of black friends, and it just wasn't a problem with me. Let me put it this way: white children had more money than the black children in the area. The black children, to make it to school, they almost had to have a scholarship. Those when they first integrated to go to school, and that they had to go all out, and they trained better and were better athletes. So naturally today, that's what it is today. I'd say that basketball is 99% black, and football is probably 50, and baseball is probably 30. So percent black. So that tells you that the black athlete is here to stay.
Well, you just answered my next question, which was, how did integration affect sporting goods sales?
Okay, I'm sorry, got ahead of the game.
What did you know about Martin Luther King, and did you agree or disagree?
Well, I thought he was way above what the thinking had been. In fact, he was peace. He wanted no bad things to happen. He'd march, and a lot of people resented him because he was, and you could see why. They had to go to the blacks had to go to the back of the bus. They couldn't ride in the front. They couldn't go to a lot of the theaters. They couldn't go into a lot of the, weren't permitted in a lot of the restaurants in the South. And he was going at it the right way instead of using bad things to make bad things happen. He just was letting God lead him.
Have you read To Kill a Mockingbird? If so, what did you think about it?
Yes, I read it and saw the movie too. I thought the acting in the movie was great, and I thought that pretty well described the South at that time. I thought it was pretty accurate as far as the South, the Deep South is concerned. Oklahoma, where I was raised, it wasn't that radical about the black people.
When and how did you notice that integration was in our system?
Oh, I know. Well, of course, calling on schools, when the schools integrated, that was obvious. I noticed, because the black schools, most of them disbanded, or they integrated the whites to some of the better black schools. The whites started going, they dispersed them and scattered them out evenly, like they did in Fort Worth. They moved them into the white school, bust them into the white school so they'd have a equal proportion.